This is everybody's day. This is everybody's day. Whosoever. You know, in the South, we are so much at ease that we may not like that church. Here, everybody was one. And we're given a very large hall that could sit in thousands. We filled the hall. We had screens outside for those who could not make their way into the hall. And on the closing night, I had come so full of the Spirit, and God gave us a strong atmosphere, miracles, healings, all kinds of things, deliverances. So there was proof that Jesus was in the building. And this is where my true story starts. As we were about to begin to celebrate God for the many things that he had done, the Lord began to speak to me of about 5 individuals who had respiratory illnesses. And so my assignment was to pray for them. And as I was laying hands on the last person, all of us heard a voice from the uppermost parts of the hall. It was a young man who spoke like with the voice of many voices. Who do you think you are? What have you come to do here? To heal people, to deliver people, to break their chains? I will deal with you. When I looked up, I saw the size of the young man, and if it was a physical fight, I would have managed. So the protocols rushed up there to grab him, take him out of the building, about 6 of them, but it dispensed with all of the 6 of them with great ease. So we now knew that there was trouble. He rushed from the top through the aisle and was trying to make his way to the stage, and another 9 very hefty protocol young men were trying to manage him. It was almost like he threw you away and then you quickly lined up to block him from going to the stage. But one of the things that they saw was that I was more focused on the person I was praying for than the young man. He kept shouting, pointing his hands. At a point, his hands offset my glasses, these same glasses. But I was focused. So it now dropped in my heart that, because sometimes, and I've seen ministers do that, when the demonic rises, you ignore it and quickly leave. So that they could think that my confidence was in some escape route that I had designed for myself. After a while, I felt, let's address it. So I now announced that when things happen like this, because of the fear I saw in the building, let's convert this manifestation to a classroom experience. So I now told them, he's been saying many things since morning. Did you notice I did not respond? They said, yes. I said it's because the enemy must never control your conversations. No. If my notion of death starts with Satan, I will not respond to him. No. My reality is supposed to be stewarded by the one that I serve. The sons of God are not led by the utterances of Satan. They are led by the Spirit of God. And until the Spirit of God brings witness that death is imminent, I will not even respond in prayer. So that was lesson 1 in that our class. Lesson 2 is that because of the stature that Satan has in darkness, he most likely cannot be accommodated in a human body peacefully. Maybe you don't believe me too. How many of us have seen a madman before? The spirit of madness is a very, very cheap spirit. The least of us can drive out madness. Are you with me? You don't believe too. Have you seen a madman face an oncoming trailer before? The spirit has enough sense to preserve his host from that impact. So if the trailer is coming, the spirit runs and leaves the road and then continues to shout. Are you with me? If you carry a stick and it's not a lunatic, because the lunatics are more active when the moon is out. If you carry a stick or a stone, madmen run. It means they respect something as small as a stone. We don't press long enough. That's why we don't have victories. Are you with me? So my lesson 2 was that Satan is not in this boy. It must be a demon. And Satan, who ranks highest in the demonic, is a defeated foe. So if your guy is defeated, the boy cannot give us problems. Meanwhile, I didn't come trying to be victorious. I came from victory. Are you with me? You will have felt that I will now have addressed the boy. That class, the demon was in the class too. And when I announced where I came from, the demon left and the boy was normal. What am I trying to say? The presence of God does not immune the believer from a storm. Jesus can be with you, and his presence can still allow you to be opened up to a storm. I'm laying this foundation because the average believer believes that the event of a storm is a sign that he has fallen away from the faith, or that sin is in place. I am saying that Jesus can be with you and you can still go through a storm. I need to lay this foundation quickly. Am I saying that storms cannot be occasioned because there is a gap in our existence that darkness is exploiting? Yes. So much so that when a storm comes, before you address it, you must go on a journey of inquiry in prayers to ask God why this thing has happened. I was sharing something with Daddy shortly. We'll look at our scriptures now. How that my wife was in town for a meeting last week, and it all ended well. I spoke to her on Sunday night and it all ended well. And they were supposed to journey back on Monday morning, my son to school, my wife at home. I was waiting. And about the time I expected they were to leave Ilorin, I began to call and nobody picked my call. And then the young lady was with my sister and with my wife, picked up my call, the call after a while, and told me, Mama cannot walk. And I said, what? Said she's so weak, she can't walk. Okay, please manage to give the phone to my wife. And then her voice was so faint, so I told the nurse who was around, send me vital signs immediately. And I saw how very low her body temperature was hanging a little over 30. I saw that the blood pressure had crashed and was very low, so I knew there was trouble. I had faith, but the first response was I started crying. And I went on my face before God and I told God, you know I can't do ministry without my wife. Don't look at me. It's not about the children. It's not about people. For the sake of the work that you have called me to do, keep this woman alive. So I began to call a couple of my friends. Unfortunately, none of them picked the call. So I called my biological father. He's a medical doctor. And after Daddy had spoken about the medical things we needed to do, he screamed at me. He said, son, is the living God that you preach. Nothing bad will happen to your wife. She will recover. So I had to rush into Ilorin. And I was the whole day in Ilorin. Well, by the time we went home in the evening, she was very good. It was not proof that God was not with me, because I saw the hand of God in solving the problem. The way we concluded the discussion was actually on Tuesday morning. The Lord said to me, it was to prove that there is still a space for fear in your heart. That this storm was not about your wife. It was just to show you that your confidence is not as strong as you think. There are still things that can shake you. So it was rather an invitation to recommit myself and the things that are precious to me into the hands of God. Someone here might be going through a storm, and it is to reveal to you that theoretically you have faith, but when life comes, your faith is not real. Let's go into scriptures. Mark chapter 4 from the 35th verse. Can the screens give me scriptures? Okay, so let's run. Do you know the song When the Oceans Rise? When the oceans rise and thunders roll, I will soar with you above the storms. Father, you are king over the floods, and I will be still and know you are God. I will be still and know you are God. So just keep running. I will be still and know you are God. That's all I need. On the same day when evening had come, he here is Jesus, said to them, let us cross over to the other side. I'll keep running commentaries because of time as we go, because this verse advertises to us that the disciples were in a place without intentions to move. It's like someone who is laid back, and Jesus by commandment initiates motion. If you met the disciples on the sea, it was because Jesus had told them that there was something for them on the other side. It was hope. It was another experience. That was the only reason why they broke camp. Like somebody may be saying, I was minding my business. You know, my brother said the unmarried people should come forward. I was minding my business until you put a lady in my heart. I was minding my business until a young man walked up to me. I was minding my business until you told me it's time to go to school. I was minding my business until you said, engage in this business, invest in this thing. I was minding my business for a new couple until you said to us it's time to have children. I was minding my business in the secular until you said it is time to begin to do ministry. The life of the believer is not supposed to be built on his will. It's supposed to be built on obedience to the commandments of the Lord. And what I'm trying to say is that everyone who has a robust relationship with Jesus, who is currently going through a storm, must have obeyed a commandment of this sort. Let us go to the other side. Some people were not designed by will to be in Ilorin. It was Jesus who said, come to Ilorin. What happened? Verse 35. Now when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as he was, and the other little boats were also with him. Let's keep running. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat so that it was already filling. If you were one of the disciples, and I like to be very, very graphic, especially with these stories, one of the first things that will have come to your mind was, did I hear God? Because you see, all of the experiences that were captured here to give definition to the storm that the disciples were facing were experiences that could not have had possibilities if they had stayed at shore. They would not need a boat. And the waters could not have been this robust in expression. I remember that the first time I went on a boat ride, I was trying to catch up with a wedding in Lekki. I just finished ministering in Ikorodu. It was well arranged. I was supposed to be a visitor. And then we got news that because the parents of the couple had left for the east long ago, when they came to church for the wedding, the church now said, you have not paid dues for 15 years. So you will first need to pay your 15 years in dues before we do the joining. You see, church can be interesting. And because they did not have means, we had to do a garden wedding. Even the pastors from the church were restrained from attending the wedding. So I was summoned. I had to get a second-hand suit. Just pulled the suit was oversized, the shirt was oversized. I was not comfortable in it, but we had to go for a wedding, and we needed to arrive in about an hour. To journey from Ikorodu to Lekki in 1 hour is impossible. So we had to go by boat ride. I was one of our ministry sons, Pastor Prince. When we first entered the water, I did a selfie of myself and told my wife, see, we're in the water. At that point, we could see the shore. A time now came when all around us in kilometers, it was water. When I showed my wife said, you are enjoying. I said, you better pray. If something goes wrong here, even one, I can't swim. My only hope will be to reoccasion the miracle of Jesus to begin to walk on water. That's the only thing I can do. Are you with me? And in case you can swim, I don't know if you can swim a kilometer. So my heart was prayers, Lord, nothing must happen. You will not fully understand the context of the challenge that the disciples had until you come into their realm to know that a couple of them had history with fishing. And so the average fisherman has no phobia for water. It meant that if they were all afraid, including the fishermen, it was because they were faced with the robustness of the waves that they had never encountered before. Their experiences with water could not solve this problem. They needed something supernatural, or they were to prepare to meet their maker. Are you with me? Do we speak Yoruba sometimes in church? Okay. One thing about the Beru, and because all of us will live long, what long life will do is that it will take you to that place that they call Iberu. It means that that realm, that geography is defined by fear. It's like in the 23rd Psalm, it begins wonderfully. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. And that's a good one. He leadeth me not beside muddied waters, but still waters. And then he restores my soul. And then my path now goes into the ways of righteousness. And it is not because I prayed long or fasted long, it's because of his name's sake. Now a twist is introduced. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. How does a good shepherd lead into the valley of the shadow of death? If you stay long with Jesus, you will come into a storm. Are you with me? It is because there are knowings about the Christ and there are knowings about yourself that you will never be able to come into if a storm does not come. Until lack comes to you, when you sing my provider, you are a liar. Until you need to meet up with a deadline and you don't have what it takes, and Jesus by the stroke of a miracle brings you relief, you will not be able to call him a miracle worker in truth. I'm saying that the storm is a gate of introduction. An introduction that you will never be able to have in practical terms, in convicting terms, until that storm comes. Let's go back to my scripture. So there are two things we saw here. The first was that, we're already in the 37th verse. The first one was that the waves beat into the boat. The second one was that this boat was getting filled. The experience of a boat with a large volume of water does not bring any peril. What makes your journey on the waters perilous is that water has started entering the boat. Are you with me?